Joanne? Yeah. All right. I'm missing Joanne. She's on her way. All right, well, she will join us in just a moment. Okay. She'll be here in a sec. All right, well, good morning, everyone. This special session is about one thing: the passage of an amendment to Maryland's Constitution to clarify the rules of congressional redistricting. This is not about a new map or changing lines. We are giving Marylanders a voice in the future of their democracy. I want to welcome you all here today. Thank you for joining us on the live stream, as well for those of the press who are here for the first time, and certainly our venerable Annapolis Press Corps. We know that there is no other place you would rather be than right here, right now. So thank you for joining us. Since Donald Trump pressured Texas into this redistricting race, what we know is that our goal in Maryland has been to protect our current 7-to-1 congressional map. We knew then, and we will seek to address now, that a 2022 state court decision applying the Maryland State Constitution to congressional map-making created a brand new standard that did not exist prior. This decision put Maryland in a very different position than many other states in this union. And unless we address this uncertainty first, any other action would jeopardize our state's current map. Further, a legal earthquake changed the landscape this spring when the Supreme Court of the United States under Calais eviscerated the very purpose and function of our Voting Rights Act. Even worse, we saw states like Tennessee, Louisiana, and South Carolina act with haste to attempt to eliminate majority-minority congressional districts. These acts changed the calculus, and that's why we're here. During this special session, we are clarifying the rules by which we will draw maps to ensure we are using the standards the state used for decades prior. We've known that we cannot consider any future map in the near term or the long term without first addressing the uncertainty that the 2022 Battaglia decision created. If we want a future legislature to have meaningful options, we must address this issue first, and we have to make sure that Marylanders have a say in that process. That's what we will do over the next 2 days and ensure that this constitutional question is put to Marylanders on the November ballot. This amendment ensures that Maryland has the ability to respond if the Trump administration or any future federal administration seeks to further erode the basic standards of democracy, and ensures that Maryland is on equal setting as other states. As I mentioned earlier, our position has always been about protecting Maryland's existing 7-to-1 map and standing in a position of strength, not one of weakness. We've known from the beginning what is at stake, and most importantly, we have known that in this moment of American history, it is insufficient to act with haste when the consequences of missteps are so impactful. What those consequences could have looked like: a map rejected by Maryland's Supreme Court, a map drawn by the court that sends us backwards when we could least afford it, a map that dilutes a region, namely Baltimore's political power, by splitting the city into pieces to diminish the region's voice in Congress, or a map that weakens representative democracy in our state by undermining hard-fought progress over time. As long as I have the privilege of serving in this seat, I will ensure that none of these things happen. This is my commitment as part of this Senate. I will always seek to protect Marylanders' interests, regardless of the political consequences. Finally, I know that many Marylanders are asking why we are here when families continue to face rising costs and affordability challenges. Those concerns are incredibly real, and they deserve and will have action. Senate and House members are already fast at work on policies to continue addressing the critical issues that we know Marylanders are facing, so that this upcoming session, we are ready to respond with additional policies to address those concerns. We will continue to fight on behalf of Marylanders against a reckless president who has started windless wars and imposed irrational tariffs to raise the price of goods on every single Marylander. We wish we could solve those problems today. We know that we have to respond to those federal uncertainties created by decisions in the White House. And just as we will continue to fight and respond to those federal actions, We are here today to give Marylanders a voice in how best to respond to attacks on democracy that started in the White House and was perpetuated by a Republican Supreme Court. With that, I will pause to open it up for questions. For those who are the first time, please, if you could just say where you were from so that we know how best to answer. Sure, guys, please.
I'm Shaylee Jacoby from Bethesda Today.
Welcome.
I wanted to ask about special elections for legislative vacancies. I know during the session earlier this year, there was some discussion of addressing these 2 points in one piece of legislation. Curious if that's going to be the case during the special session or not.
This is very focused on congressional redistricting and the standards of with the constitutional amendment. This is a bill that has passed the Senate 3 separate times. We made it Senate Bill 1 to make it a priority. It hadn't gotten across the finish line. Some additional concerns have arisen, and so we knew that we had to be focused here on these next 2 days, and so I don't believe we'll be taking it up this year, or this session, this special session. Yep.
President, what's the whip count? Is everybody here?
We will see what everybody clocks in today. I believe we'll be close to all of our members. I think we had 1 or 2 members who had circumstances that they could not change, which is always the challenge of a special session in the summer. But I believe we wouldn't be here if we didn't think that we had the votes to move forward.
How close are you? I mean, do you have?
I think that we'll be in a fine place.
Mr. President, if this constitutional amendment passes the General Assembly and is approved by voters in November, will there be a new map discussed next session?
I think a key part of this special session is to give Marylanders a voice in this broader conversation, given the absolute earthquake that happened with the Calais decision. And so we'll have to see. I think we have to get one step at a time because we've seen what happens if we act without taking one step at the time. We saw that in our neighbors in Virginia, where they thought that they had moved forward, and lo and behold, they hadn't. And so we are taking this one step at a time. We'll see where we are after November.
Mr. President, piggybacking off of that, I know it is multiple steps away, but you talked in your remarks about concerns about diluting the representation in Baltimore City and the Baltimore region. And that was part of the prior map from last session that was not passed. Is that a concern you have going forward if, again, there's 1 or more maps proposed in January? Talk a little bit more about your concerns for Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know what happens in order to, in any congressional, the issue here is that I and we have been through this. We did this in 2021 when we traveled the state and saw 13 different venues in which we heard feedback from Marylanders about redistricting. It is not just a matter of lines on a map. It has very deep impacts on the long-term consequences in future for regions and the state as a whole. And what I know is that if you split up a region, it has negative impacts for that region, something that we have to make sure that we cannot and will not do moving forward. At the end of the day, that's why this amendment is the right first step. We have to give Marylanders a say in this really important moment for American history, and then we will take up these broader questions as we move forward.
There's a school of thought that says if there's 3 or even 4 members of Congress who have a piece of Baltimore City, then that's that many more people advocating for the city. What's your response to that?
You know, look, I think that the 7th Congressional District here in the state of Maryland is an unbelievably important district. If you look at its history and you go back in time into the 60s, the Voting Rights Act was not just formulated and passed in Washington, it was actually formulated in Baltimore City in the 7th Congressional District. That is where the ideas came from. It is around a table in the 7th District that the voting rights was the entire strategy for its passage moved forward. And so it is something that has historical significance in this moment in time that I think the historic 7th District is something that has to be protected no matter what, be it in the short term or the long term moving forward.
Mr. President, you also talked a lot during session about how this was a discussion between you and the caucus, and how the caucus wasn't necessarily on the same page at that time to, make this change. Things have shifted. You've largely cited the Voting Rights Act as being the catalyst for that. Can you give us some more insight into those discussions that led up to this shift, though, with the caucus as well? What has it been like when you guys are talking, you've decided to make this shift now?
Well, I stand here with leaders in the Senate who have been through this process before, and I think that is one of the core differences is that we had that experience in 2021 when we did everything right. We dotted every I, we crossed every T, we did everything by the book, by the rules that had been in existence at that point. And lo and behold, in March of 2022, Judge Battaglia threw out that map. That was impactful for me, and I believe for all of us, because once something is in the court system, you never know how it can play out. And in this moment in time where we are seeing the consequences of a reckless federal administration that starts windless wars, that imposes tariffs on everyday Marylanders who are paying prices that just coming down, seeing $4.20 gas, this is the consequences that we are operating within, and we can't afford, and I believe all of us believe that we could not afford to act from a position of weakness. And so from the beginning, we had said that this 2022 case was fundamental. It was a first step in order to deal with, in order to have options to make sure that we're responding the right way. And I think that's really the fundamental question here. And we're all on the same page now. We are moving forward in this special session to deal with this 2022 case and give Marylanders a say in what happens moving forward.
Mr. President, Matt Gregory, Channel 9 in DC. Question about this. It's going to be a constitutional amendment, and it'll be something that's up for a referendum. Do you have an idea of what the question you would pose to the voters is? I know this was an issue in Virginia, was that people felt the question itself was misleading, and this is quite convoluted, so to speak, in terms of what you have to get right to thread the needle. How would you question it?
The language is actually in the legislation itself. So it's in the third section that says how it would appear on the ballot. I think it's very fair and very clear that it puts Maryland on the same footing as we once were and as almost every other state is. The 2022 opinion, the Battaglia opinion, brought the Maryland State Constitution's criteria into congressional mapmaking for the first time ever in Maryland. For 150 years, we had never had the state constitution as a guidepost. So essentially, we are restoring what already was, and that's fundamental to how the language is crafted and what it says for Marylanders to vote on.
Mr. President, what do you say to Republican voters, not Republican members of the legislature, not the Republican leadership, but Republican voters who are going to look at this as an attack on their voice and a further dilution of their representation? They make up roughly 25-30% of Maryland voters, and ostensibly the goal here is to eliminate the last Republican member of Congress in Maryland.
I would say they have the same exact responsibility as every other voter, be it an unaffiliated, a Democratic voter, or a Republican voter. This process allows for Marylanders to have a say in what their democracy looks like moving forward. They will have the opportunity to vote on this. If they don't like it, they should vote no. If folks in Maryland do want to see this move forward, they should vote yes. And I think that's really what's critical here is we are providing this opportunity for all Maryland voters to have a say in what their democracy will look like moving forward. You know, you look at what other states have done, they have not engaged their voters. They have done it unilaterally. They've done it through special processes. That's not what we're doing here.
Mr. President, you mentioned looking to November kind of in terms of where the future may lie on this and what may come next if the voters approve this. I mean, can you talk about the likelihood for, maybe an electoral outcome to make it not necessary to do new maps? I mean, if Democrats end up winning, does that change things for you guys? And it's like, okay, well, we opened the door, but we're not going to walk through it.
I think what we are doing with this amendment is restoring certainty in the standards for congressional mapmaking here in Maryland. No matter what, that is important to do. And so that is the ultimate goal, and giving Marylanders a say to restore that certainty so that we know what the rules of the road are. What happens post-November will depend on what happens in November. And so I think we just have to take it up at that point and see what the state of the world is at then.
Mr. President, you mentioned this about the affordability, and that's a lot of what we're hearing from Republicans, especially, who argue that this is a waste of time when there are other real pressing issues facing Marylanders right now. Why bring everyone back and do this special session in the middle of summer when those issues are pressing Marylanders to deal with a constitutional amendment? Could this have waited until next session during the regular session?
It's a very good question. It couldn't have waited. And the reason is that legally, constitutionally, a ballot question cannot go up for a special election. It has to go on to a general election. And so in order to make sure that it was on November 2026's ballot, we had to do this over the summer prior to November in order to put it on the ballot before Marylanders. That does not diminish the very real concerns that many Maryland families are feeling on an everyday basis. And I look at what's happening with gas prices, with food prices, with the uncertainty that's created by the war and ceasefire that doesn't exist in Iran. That is what is driving so many of our markets to go completely haywire. You look at what's happening in the energy markets. The passage of the Republican budget bill last year has thrown renewable energy markets into a tailspin. It has driven up costs everywhere. It's why you're seeing places like PJM scramble to try to figure out any type of way to lower costs. It's because we've had a federal administration that promised a focus on lowering prices and has done the exact opposite.
So why wait until next year to deal with those issues and not do it right now?
I think we are studying these issues to figure out what in Maryland we can do, but we also recognize as a single state in a union, we only have so many levers to pull in order to lower costs when we exist within this federal environment. And so that's what we are doing as we speak, and as I'm sure there will be multiple meetings over these next 2 days in person of people that are talking about what exactly we can do to protect Marylanders. You look at the 30,000 Marylanders who are about to lose Medicaid coverage. That was because of the Republican budget bill that was passed last year, and now here we are staring at the face of families who won't be able to put food on the table for having lost their SNAP benefits, for not being able to go get primary care coverage because Medicaid is being stripped from them. Those are the policies that we are trying to react to that are wholly a product of a federal administration and not individual decisions here in Maryland.
Mr. President, the governor's gonna end up saying in a little bit, they finally did it, they finally listened to me. How do you respond to that?
We focus on Marylanders. That's what we've been doing from the beginning. That's what we listen to.
Is this a win for him though?
That's for commentators to talk about.
Mr. President, this issue obviously has taken up a lot of space, both during the session and afterward. Maryland is unique in the way that the legislature draws its congressional districts. Do you foresee any potential, move in the future to create like a commission like California has to maybe take this off of your hands?
Yeah, I think from the very beginning, what's been clear is that this started because Donald Trump asked Texas to move forward. And then there were responses. Then we saw the Supreme Court act and totally eviscerate the Voting Rights Act, which again, changed the landscape. I've said from the beginning, and personally, I will say this on behalf of myself, I think that this redistricting battle is a race to the bottom that's mutually assured destruction as it plays out in full, if it plays out in full. We cannot be in a place where we're doing this every 2 years, and that is what it feels like in this moment. I am hopeful that things shift in November, but we'll have to see where things stand. But at the end of the day, Marylanders deserve options to how to exist within the chaos that was created by Donald Trump asking Texas to start this battle.
Guys, we can do one more, Joe. Mr. President, you're talking about fighting back against the Trump administration, but also making clear this is not about a map. Is it really fighting back against the Trump administration if you only change the state constitution?
What we've said from the beginning is that we have a map that puts Maryland in a 7-1 congressional allocation, partisan allocation. We have sought from the beginning to protect that, to act from a position of weakness and just trying to move forward because we want to show that we're doing something would have been a greater risk for Maryland than to approach it the way that we are now, systematically, making sure that we are in a position of strength to have options. I think this is the right way to go, and it's ensuring that Marylanders have a voice in this entire process.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you all. Thank you.
How's our son? He's doing great. He's